Good morning. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. I'm Reverend Lane-Mairead Campbell. It is my privilege and honor to be the minister of this congregation, and I use they/them pronouns. Joining me this morning in leading worship is Greg Baum, our worship associate. He/him pronouns. Dr. Brock Chesvold, a fabulous music director, using he/him pronouns as well. Jack Cunningham is supporting our tech here in the service, he/him, by himself without Emma. So let us hold a deep prayer for Jack this morning as you step into this new realm of your position. Thank you, Jack. Joining us supporting our online worship this morning, Lisa Gwinner and Karen Lomacco, both using she/her pronouns, and Reverend Michelle Yates is going to be sharing our story, our Minister of Lifespan Faith Formation, also she/her. If you are here for the first time visiting this worshiping community, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you are here this morning. So grateful that you've made it here, whether you're here in person or online. We have a visitors form that can be found by in your pews, or also to just click the link in the chat for our folks who are online. Please fill it out. Here this Sunday morning. We do offer a U session on the third Sunday of every month following the service. It's a question and answer time to get to learn a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism and also about First Universalist. Our next U session is November 20th, so please join us for that. Before we take a moment to rise and to greet our neighbor, either here in the sanctuary or to greet our neighbor online, let us take a moment to connect with our online community. So if you all would turn towards Jack over here, or towards our green camera, and offer a wave to our online worshiping community, it'll be great for them to see. We are so glad you are here with us online this morning. So if you're joining us online, please pop into the chat and offer a greeting. And if you're here, please rise and offer a greeting to your neighbor. Well, dear ones, this is the worst part of my Sunday morning, to have to pull you back from your conversations. I always hate this, but we are going to sing. We are going to sing. So let's sing hymn number 103, For All the Saints. This morning, we are going to be exploring ancestry and ancestors. So let us join in singing hymn number 103. Please rise in body or in spirit, however you feel called. Please be seated.
Good morning. We invite into this space all those who have gone before, the ancestors and saints that dreamed us into being, the ones whose names we do not know and can never know, those chosen and adopted ancestors, those especially with whom we have a tough relationship. Come in, come in, come in. Let us have a conversation. Let us tell our stories. Let us wrestle with who we are, should claim, and why. Let us hold boundaries firm with those we do not feel safe inviting in. Share with me your story of complicated ancestors, and I will share mine with you as well. In the spirit of all that is holy and complicated, deserves reckoning, come, let us worship together. At this time, as Sarah Single lights our chalice at First Universalist Church, and you light a chalice in your own homes, will you join me in saying the chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. All that dwell below the sky. Our church gives once monthly to a justice organization doing good work for our community. Being Black in the Burbs is committed to combating anti-Black racism and discrimination, which is prevalent throughout the suburbs. They challenge predominantly white suburban entities, governments, schools, organizations, and communities to become anti-racist and hold them accountable for providing equity and access for people marginalized by the system of white supremacy. First Universalist is committed to racial equality in Rochester, in our suburbs, and throughout our county. You are invited to give this worthy cause and organization this morning. Visitors can drop your visitor's form into the offering basket. You are invited to give online by scanning the QR code in your pews or to drop an offering in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link to chat to give. Thank you for your generosity.
If the Thank you very much.
So let it be. So let it be.
In 2017, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, Blue, who we have collected donations for here, so hopefully you've heard that before, invited strongly to our individuals and to our congregations to look into your ancestry and to consider that you might be one of those people or one of those churches that have a complex relationship with your ancestors and their history with enslavement here in the United States. So one of my colleagues, Katie Scudera, is the minister of the Needham Church in Massachusetts. And of course she thought, oh, great. Well, I'm sure in this rural Massachusetts farming town, we didn't have any slavery here. We always love to say that as Unitarian Universalists, we're on the side of love, right? We've always been on the side of love. We're on the side of civil rights heritage and against enslavement, even back in the day. But not everyone was. Give me one of these if you ever have trouble hearing me, okay? It is on, but I might need to get closer to my microphone. Thank you. Feel free to always do that to us. It's a quick, easy way to be like, not hearing you. So Katie did, I'll do a quick Google search. Needham, Massachusetts, and slavery. And she came up with a history article that was pretty conservative. There were two. In the history of enslavement, there were two slave owners who lived in Needham. And she looked up quickly, like, okay, thankfully, I don't think that they had a relationship with my church. But as she went through the list, there were two children who were enslaved who had been baptized at her church. She said, oh man, we have to look deeper. So they did look deeper in the parish birth, baptism, and death records, and they went on to find at this point at least 10 enslavers who lived in Needham. Two of those families were two of the founding families of the Needham Church. Many of the people who were listed in the rolls as being enslaved were children. And unfortunately, one of those families and people was their first and longest tenure minister, Reverend Townsend. Now, one of their buildings had been donated by Reverend Townsend's father. Reverend Townsend also, on the appointment of him to becoming the first minister of the Needham Church, his father gifted him with a person. Homer was enslaved by Reverend Townsend and is listed in the rolls as being paid regularly. Of course, not Homer, but Reverend Townsend paid for Homer's labor as a sextant, the caretaker at the church. How much longer? How did the church benefit from the taxes and the gifts of these families, these people, and how they benefited from taking complete control over the lives of others? And it's really echoed by the month after Homer died. Reverend Townsend went to the parish and demanded and threatened to resign unless he was given a raise. Because suddenly, without owning another person whose labor he could benefit from, he could not afford to live in the way he was accustomed. So I gave it a shot. a very, very quick search, not very in depth. And I know we have other researchers here, and I could certainly talk to Reverend Vertus Robinson. But on a quick Google of slavery in Rochester, New York, a very recent article with research on how Nathaniel Rochester came to town with his wife and children and about 10 enslaved people. The area of Western New York was purchased from enslavers by enslavers, and our town would not be what it is today without the labor and lives of we don't know how many enslaved people. We all have personal stories of complicated ancestors. And we have larger communal stories with complicated ancestors. And the first part of what do we do about it is at least to talk about it. Because that first article that Reverend Scudera found was a history that was written by someone who knew more. He was an archivist. He would have known about those 10 other families, but he only wrote about 2. So someone who was telling the history downplayed it. Didn't want to get too messy in with the details, made it nice and tidy. But life and history is not tidy. So the first thing that we can do is to talk about it, to share those stories, to feel through the feelings. And then maybe we can talk about what it would look like to heal as individuals, to heal as a community, to be more whole, knowing that there is more love and that we can get there.
I feel like Rev Michelle had quite a gift to share with us. It feels important just to sit with the sorrow of it, just for a moment. I want to invite you into this reverent time of sharing the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to listen from a heart-centered place, recognizing that we can connect in this heart-centered place here in this sanctuary and a community also online. As Greg places stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. All are also invited to share joys and sorrows in the chat that we may hear from our online folks as well. This morning, we share a joy from Donna and Tom Anderson. Donna and Tom are in Seattle for a long visit with family. Our trip out was smooth all the way. Now the fun begins. Woo-hoo. We share a joy this morning from Richard Reed and from Ann Rohde that NISCU happened here yesterday, the New York State Convention of Universalists. A wonderful time was had. Fellow Universalists and Unitarians gathered for our yearly convention, and a special note from Connie Volk, hurrah for Ann Rohde. Yes. We share a joy from Theo Munson, who just shares that yesterday she learned so much about the history of immigration, politics, and personhood. Celebrating in the joys of learning this morning. We have a joy from our caring committee. Bob Remley is going home today. He has been so generously supported by Pat Dean, as well as other members of his small group ministry. Visits, cards, and calls are welcome. We are thinking of you today, Bob, as you make your way. We also share another joy from our caring committee. Ed Deller had a successful heart surgery and is out of ICU and in the cardiac unit, walking with assistance already. Wow. No visitors while he's in the hospital. Cards should go to their home. This morning we share a concern, a sorrow from Jeannie Gloss. I'm so glad you're here this morning with us, Jeannie. Jeannie is experiencing a severe autoimmune condition. We have decided against treatment due to quality of life, and it is impossible to predict the length of survival. Jeannie, so grateful you are spending your precious time here this morning with us. Let us drop one stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys shared by our online community. Let us drop a stone of sorrow for all the sorrows shared by our online community. And we'll drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys and the sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. Dear ones, I want to invite you into a time of meditation, prayer, and a bit of call and response with me. So please get comfortable in your seats. If you're joining us online, allow your fingers to come down from the keyboards. Allow your shoulders to relax from your ears. Close your eyes, soften your gaze. And I'll invite you to bring to mind your ancestors. As we gather this morning, we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Ancestors of this community. Ancestors who were pillars of this church. Those whose faces we still miss seeing in the pews. The people whose lives taught us what to believe and who showed us their beliefs through their actions. Those whose spiritual and religious ways of being have left a mark on us. Let us pause now and name the ancestors of our faith and the ancestors of this community of First Universalist, both aloud and in the chat. Phyllis Bentley. Phil Campbell. We honor the ancestors of this community. Ancestors of our families. Those whose names we know, who were with us as we grew up. The people who loved us into being and with whom we had complicated relationships. Names and people that cannot be named because we do not know them. Lineages we claim from birth or adoption or just what we know about where we are from. We name the ancestors of our families, both aloud and in the chat. Donald Hassel. Del Campbell. We honor the ancestors of our families. Ancestors we have chosen. The people who lived like us, who were family, friends, or people so close they felt like family, those whose lineage we claim out of our lived experiences, queer kin, skin family, those who have died who shaped our communities, names known and even unknown. Circumstances where people died too soon and died before we had a chance to tell them what they meant to us. We name our chosen ancestors, both aloud and in the chat. Martha P. Johnson. Sylvia Herrera. Tony McDade. Matthew P. Taylor. With gratitude, we pause to honor this cloud of witnesses. We pause to honor the lives lost, the people who made us who we are, the ancestors who are responsible for our very living, breathing existence. Thank you. Thank you for the examples you set, for the ways you paved. Thank you for the lives you lived and all you gave. Thank you for this world we live in and the very bodies we inhabit. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. Let us join in a moment of silence together to acknowledge those named and unnamed, and just to remember with gratitude. Our ancestors, may they rest in peace, and may we sing to them this morning our hymn of contemplation. Nothing but peace is enough. 167. Brock will play it through for us once, and then let us join in singing. As we sing our hymn this morning, I am reminded of the phrase often uttered when we learn of the death of someone we know. May they rest in peace. Nothing but peace is enough for our ancestors. May each one rest in peace. A phrase whose origins come from a prayer that God would be merciful to those who have died, that their soul will find rest. And yet, this morning we gather to explore perhaps those ancestors that leave us a bit restless. Many of us, and maybe I'm making an assumption here, but many of us did not grow up with a religious tradition or a family that might have honored ancestors. Some of us might have. Perhaps you grew up in a family with a practice of naming ancestors. Perhaps, and you would not be alone in this, you did not. Likely, I imagine you've been to a memorial service to honor someone in your family or in your life that has died. And I wonder how these folks are remembered afterwards. I wonder what stories come up during gatherings, or if there are pictures that hang in your homes or in your family homes to honor those who have died. I wonder if there are people in your family's history that you do not speak of again after their death. Perhaps those whose memorial services were particularly difficult to attend, or for whom you made the decision not to attend at all. And it is those folks I'd like to invite us into focusing on this morning. It is the ones we'd rather not claim, the ancestors and the relatives that we would rather forget, that I think we truly need to wrestle with. Those whom we might wish that they rest in peace, yet their lives and their memories sometimes leave us feeling restless. To think through who we are talking about when we talk about ancestors, it feels important to just briefly explore the who and the how of who came before. Ancestry can be expansive. It is not just about our blood kin, about those who gave birth to our parents and their parents before them and the generations that are related to us in this way. We can also claim ancestors of a place. Perhaps the place where you were born or the place you live now. People and communities that are part of your cultural and ethnic heritage, even the ancestry of the land. One of my favorite ancestral workers is Lisa Fazio, who does work around Italian ancestry and cultural practice and herbalism in Utica. She writes, and she makes these amazing t-shirts that say, "Plants are our ancestors who are still alive." She shares often about the ways our ancestors might have used plants for medicine and relationship to the earth. These are blueprints for living, a way to care for our bodies and our health that our ancestors left for us to find. We can also claim ancestry in our communities, right? Queer ancestors, trans ancestors, ancestors of the class and union struggles, ancestors in justice, ancestors of organizations we are part of. The list could continue. I could go on and on, but I won't. It is not just about the families we were born into. It is also about where we find ourselves in the world, and it is about the people we choose, because we get to choose our people. I want to share with you all this morning, and it feels a little bit risky to do so, but I want to share with you all this morning that I believe that our ancestors are alive, that they live on in us, in our bones and our actions, in our words and how we live. I will also say that I believe in the ancestral spirits that surround us. that they provide guidance for us through intuition and regular conversation. I know this may not be everyone's shared belief in this space. Yet one of the many joys and challenges of being Unitarian Universalist is that we hold different beliefs, and we get a chance to share those beliefs with one another. Whatever your beliefs are about ancestors and ancestry, you are welcome here. To believe our ancestors are alive and among us challenges the very rational part of our faith. Those skeptical pieces that live in each of us about what needs to be seen to be believed. And yet, I have had experiences that have been quite real for me, that affirm that our ancestors are amongst us. And it is out of this belief that our ancestors are alive and around us that I want to share a personal story this morning. Before I do, just a bit of context. Always needs a little bit of context. I am someone who has not always had the best relationship with my family. I was raised in a home with active addiction and emotional abuse. I've shared this with some of you here, particularly a difficult relationship with my father. I share this with you all because I believe I am not alone here. I share this with you all because when we trouble our ancestors and feel troubled by claiming them, we are not alone. I share this with you all because the story that Rev Michelle shared is a larger scale story of what's going on for many of us in our personal lives. And I also share this with you all because alcoholism and abuse so often thrive in secret, and I am not willing to live in secret anymore. I want this to be a community where we don't have to live in secret about our experiences. 2 years ago, to set the scene, it was in the midst of the pandemic, and I was having some issues around my ancestry. I felt a call, and I had an invitation from a friend to do an ancestral reading for me. He was using tarot cards, and as the reading was underway and my friend was in a mode of communicating with ancestors, they revealed to me that an ancestor was present who had ill intentions for me. When they mentioned this ancestor, I immediately knew who it was. I had been having dreams of my dad and had been feeling quite haunted and restless before bed in the weeks prior to the reading. What was revealed was that it was time for me to engage in some work to spiritually protect myself from my father. I know, suspend some disbelief here. I took time to devise a ritual in consultation with my spiritual director, with my therapist, with cultural and ethnic resources, with friends and colleagues, to create protection around myself and to also ask my father to no longer linger in my life, to find somewhere else to be. In the days following this ritual that I did in my home, I felt peaceful. I felt more at ease. Was this all in my head? Or was it truly some essential spiritual work I had to do? At this point, I choose to believe that the protections I set around myself are real, and that the ease and calm I have felt since this ritual a few years ago has been the direct result of the protections I asked for and the boundaries I set. Our ancestors are alive among us and shape who we are and what we do. And how we interact with our ancestors has a lot to say about who we are and about our relationships with the living. To know our religious ancestors as well as our familial ancestors is to know who we are. It is to claim an authentic identity in community. Learning about our ancestry holds both our individual identity as well as our communal identity. We are not individuals who exist in isolation, who arrive to who we are and how we are in this world just as ourselves. We are shaped by those who have gone before. They live on in us. And there are times when this fact is comforting. And there are also times when this fact is deeply challenging, deeply uncomfortable. I wonder if you yourself have ancestors you feel the need to be protected from. I wonder if you have ancestors who have caused harm and damage. I wonder what ways they themselves were hurting. I wonder what healing work is called for all of us to do. As a country, we are always wrestling with ancestors, balancing the stories of those who came before, telling the hero's tale of who we were and what we did. I hear this a lot when people share personal stories of ancestors, and even when we share stories of the history of our country and of our denomination. We would rather celebrate the good people, right? The happy stories, the times when our ancestors were triumphant. It is more rare to hear the stories like what Reverend Michelle shared this morning. More often than not, we want to claim the abolitionists rather than those who held slaves. We want to share the stories of how our ancestors built this great nation rather than the indigenous genocide and enslavement that this country has truly been built on. We do not want to acknowledge the long-term land theft that has led us to wherever we are living in this present day and to whatever wealth we may hold. My invitation to you this morning is to tell the truth about who your ancestors are. To see the people who came before you for both the bad and the good. For my father, he was an incredibly passionate and loving man. He was someone who enjoyed the arts and cared for our family in the best way he knew how. And yet, I can also hold that he was very hurtful during his lifetime. For the ancestors of the first parish of Needham, the Unitarian Universalist Church these were human beings who loved their children and likely cared for their community and also upheld and laid the foundation for horrific life practices that held whites as superior and treated enslaved Africans as property, rather than the human beings those folks obviously were. I just want to take one brief moment to detour a little bit and highlight the harms I am referring to directly. Ancestry in this country has been stolen from Black folks. It's been stolen from Black folks living in this country whose lineage includes enslavement. Enslaved Africans were brought to these so-called United States in violent and horrendous ways, removed from one's home context, stolen and brought on boats. To know one's ancestry as a Black American is extremely difficult. Access to ancestry has been stolen. And the ancestors that can sometimes be known are too often white ancestors, where lineages were produced out of acts of sexual coercion and rape. What a painful part of ancestry to reckon with and wrestle with. And for those of us who are here in this room who identify as white, what an important and painful part of our ancestry to reckon with. That those are our ancestors. To keep it on a personal level, perhaps you have a complicated or a tense relationship with a recent ancestor. When we talk about claiming ancestors, the idea of doing so could feel to you like self-abandonment. To protect yourself and to be safe, you have had to distance yourself from this relative. I think this is healthy behavior and a healthy choice. We are not obligated to claim our ancestors. We are obligated to do our own healing work around what has happened to us. That healing work is also what I want to encourage us towards in wrestling with our ancestors. Please do not hear from me this morning that I am asking you to cancel your ancestors. We will not cancel us. I do not truly think this is possible. These ancestors have shaped and informed the ways we are in the world, the privileges that some of us hold here. What I am saying is that it is okay to honor and acknowledge the harm our ancestors have done and to seek repair in our lifetimes, in this lifetime. Do your research. Find out who and where you come from as much as you can know. Seek repair through practices of truth-telling, forgiveness, holding complexity and nuance, holding both and. It is true that many of our ancestors have done harm. It is true that we were not present for that harm. It is also true that we have likely benefited from that harm and that we have been shaped by their deeds. To wrestle with our ancestors is to be honest about who they were and to find ways to seek justice for the harms that have been done. In this season, where the veil grows thin, let us acknowledge and honor our ancestors authentically. Where we may need to protect ourselves, let us do so. Where we need to tell the truth, let the truth be spoken. Where we might need to dig a little deeper, let's commit to that digging together. May the truth of our discomfort and the actions we take towards repair help us to live more full, authentic, and spiritually grounded lives. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. For our closing hymn this morning, we will sing hymn number 1051. We are a song that reminds us that we come out of our ancestors. Perhaps this song will bring some comfort to some and some discomfort to others, but let us sing it nonetheless. It is in your teal hymnal and on the screen. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 1051, We Are. Please remain standing as Greg comes forward to extinguish our chalice flame. Let us read our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Dear ones, I'll invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you're joining us on gallery in Zoom, please turn your view to gallery view. If you're here in this space, just take a look around and look at who is here with you this morning. Who are you connected to here in this space? Who are those who have gone before that you are missing here? Who are those you connect with now? Dear ones, as we go forth this week into these days, let us hold the complications that are claiming our ancestors. Let us tell the truth. Let us dig deep. Let us be honest about where we come from, who we come from, and who we are. Let us do our healing work. And we do that healing work out of the sense and the felt knowingness that we ourselves are loved. May you know that you are loved, and may you go and be that love to whomever you meet. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so.